We are nearing the halfway point of the 2025 NFL season, and I have never been more confused about what teams are good and what teams are bad. So in today's video, I'm going to try to give some clarity as to who are the actual contenders through week 7 of the 2025 NFL season. Subscribe and like the video if you do go on to enjoy. Let's hop into it. So to break down who are contenders and who are not contenders, I gave it 3 different categories. These categories are going to be the dark horse contenders, the actual contenders, and then the favorites. I think they're pretty self-explanatory. Let's go ahead and hop into the dark horse contenders. And our first dark horse contender is going to be the Denver Broncos. Currently, the Denver Broncos actually lead the AFC West with a 5-2 record, but I think it's pretty safe to say they've been, a little up and down this year. They started off the season with a really ugly victory versus the Tennessee Titans. Then they had a bad loss to the Colts where they probably should have won that game, but had a really stupid special teams penalty. Then they lost to a surging Chargers team that hasn't really played great these past few weeks. They got a big win versus the Bengals, and then they got that win versus the Eagles, and it was like, okay, the Broncos are starting to turn the page a little bit, and this is going to be a team that can start to push for major success this year. And in the past 2 weeks, they've gotten victories, but man, they have been very ugly wins. A 13-11 win versus the worst team in the NFL and the New York Jets. And in this past week, they had to score 33 points in the fourth quarter, one of the craziest games of all time, but they had to score 33 points in the fourth quarter to win this game versus the New York Giants. So I just don't really know how to feel about this team. It's so clear and obvious this team is good and that they have a great defense, but it's also very confusing because it's like, how good is their offense? This offense is just so up and down. They're really hard to determine who they actually are. And when you look at the rest of their schedule, they have a couple tests upcoming. They have the Cowboys this week, the Texans, the Raiders, the Chiefs, the Commanders, Raiders again. And then down the stretch, they got the Packers, the Chiefs, the Jags, the Broncos again. So they're going to have a couple more tests upcoming to see where they truly are at in terms of being, contenders or dark horses. But I just look at this team and say they're an excellent defense that has flaws on the offensive end that I don't know if that makes them an actual contender. Until they can prove to me that Bo Nix is a really excellent quarterback, and that they have more weapons outside of Courtland Sutton, I can't put them up into contenders. For now, they're just going to be a dark horse. The next dark horse team is going to be the New England Patriots. It felt like a couple years ago, we left the New England Patriots at the train station and said, hey, you guys are no longer good. You guys don't run the NFL anymore. Then they drafted Drake May. Then they signed Mike Vrabel to become their head coach. Then they went aggressive in free agency, adding all these pieces. And next thing you know, this team is currently one of the best teams in the NFL. They are currently first place in a division that has the Buffalo Bills in them. Granted, Buffalo was on a bye week this week, but still, Buffalo has a ton of flaws. We'll talk about them here in a little bit. But the Patriots currently are in the lead for the division, and they have a really light schedule that could lead them to potentially winning this division, which would be insane to think about. It feels like ever since the Steelers game where they lost 21-14 and they had a bunch of fumbles, made a bunch of mistakes, it's almost like a light has clicked on for this team because since then they pummeled the Panthers. A big win versus their rivals in the Buffalo Bills, a win versus the Saints, and in this past week, a really good win versus the Titans. Drake May is looking like a top 5 quarterback, and that's something that I didn't think was going to happen this soon. I thought it was going to take him 3 to 4 years to figure it out. He's figured it out in just year number 2, and he's only going to just get better and better and better. Now, the talent on this team is not as good as some of these other contenders, hence why they're only in my dark horses. But when it comes to a team that is playing at a very high level with a quarterback that is playing at an extremely elite level, that puts you in the dark horse category. I do think the Patriots have a path here to make the playoffs because when you look at their future schedule, they have a couple tough tests, but for the most part, it's really light. Next week, they got the Browns. Then they got the Falcons. They have a big test on November 9th versus the Buccaneers, and I think that game right there is the game that'll tell us whether the Patriots are contenders or just dark horses. Because really outside of that, like, yes, they have Buffalo and Baltimore later in the season, but even if they lose those games, like the rest of their schedule is against nobodies. I'm talking the Jets, the Dolphins. The Giants are a feisty team, but the Giants, like, golly, this schedule is so light that we really won't know who this Patriots team is until they go into a Tampa Bay, a Buffalo again, or Baltimore with hopefully Lamar Jackson, and then we'll get a better idea as to who they are. They're scary, though. They are 100% scary. And our last dark horse contender is going to be the San Francisco 49ers. I really struggle to put this team on here, not because I'm not impressed with what they've done. It's just they have injuries everywhere, and yet they are somehow still in the lead in their division with a 5-2 record, and they just find ways to win football games. It is magical what Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh have done with this team. I'm talking no Ayuk. I'm talking Kittle was out for most of the season. Brock Purdy's been out for most of the season. You got McCaffrey coming off an Achilles injury. You got Trent Williams coming off a major injured season last year too. Ricky Pearsall's missed time. Jawan Jennings missed time. Fred Warner's now out for the season, at least I think. Nick Bosa's out for the season. Your best pass rushers, arguably like a rookie in Mykel Williams and Bryce Huff. I mean, we're talking injuries all over the field. Then you think about what happened in free agency, where you had guys like Talanoa Hufanga and Drake Greenlaw leave the team. You had all these other controversies with Kyle Juszczyk, and everything that could have went wrong has went wrong for the Niners team. And yet they're 5-2, and they're not just beating cupcake teams. They are beating pretty good football teams. They beat the Rams with Mac Jones. They beat the Atlanta Falcons, who are coming off a win versus the Buffalo Bills, and they did it again with Mac Jones. What they are doing is simply put magical, and I have to give them their flowers. Now, I can't put them in contenders or favorites because this team is absolutely killed with injuries, and I expect them, if they were to make the playoffs, to not make a very deep run just because they don't have the talent right now. But man, this coaching staff is doing a whale of a job, and if they can get a little bit healthier on the offensive end, maybe things could look up for this Niners team, but it's kind of hard to predict that right now. All right, now we're going to go ahead and transition over to our contenders category, and like the dark horses, this is another sort of small group category that I only have a couple names to talk about. And we are going to begin with the Los Angeles Chargers. I know the Chargers have looked really bad lately. I'm talking, man, you went from the super highs of week 1 and 3 where you beat the Chiefs, you beat the Broncos, you beat the Raiders, you beat all your division rivals. But since then, man, it's been rough, and it's mainly because of injuries. And, you know, right now, no Joe Alt, no Rashawn Slater for the season. Amarian Hampton has missed time, and that's the bread and butter of this team. It's relying on your offensive line. It's relying on this run game. It's taking pressure off your quarterback and making life difficult for the defense to have to stop the feisty downhill attack, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, Justin Herbert is spraying that ball down the field to Quentin Johnston, McConkey, even Keenan Allen to an extent. And this Chargers defense has also taken a big step back these few weeks, which has probably been the most disappointing thing about this team. Last year, this defense, when the offense wasn't able to go, was the reason why they would stay in games and keep things close. But as of late, this defense has taken a bit of a step back, and that's quite disappointing. So they're 4-3 now, but they do have a pretty good record against their division. I still think they have an opportunity to get healthy because their schedule's not too hard the rest of the way until later in the season. So hopefully they can go on a bit of a run here against some of these worser teams, get healthy, and then go into the back half of your season and then have all your horses ready to go to make a push for the playoffs. They're in my contenders category, but I think you can make a strong argument they should be in dark horses. I just have them here because I think they can get healthy, and because of the way their schedule's set up, I think they can make a run if they can get healthy. Next up, let's talk about the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers have been a really weird football team. They're 4-1-1 on the season. Of course, the tie with the Dallas Cowboys makes that record a little bit more ugly. They're playing decent football, and it's weird because weeks 1 and 2, it was like, man, this Packers team is legit. They're going to win a Super Bowl. They're going to make it super far in the playoffs. Whatever you might have said, everyone thought this Packers team was very freaking good. And honestly, rightfully so. They beat up on the Detroit Lions in week 1. Then they beat up on the Washington Commanders, who were mostly healthy, in week 2. But since then, it's just been ugly wins or ugly ties or even ugly losses. The loss versus the Browns is sort of the pinnacle example of it. How do you lose to a Browns team that at that point scored like 13 points in that game and they still won that game? Then you lost to the Dallas Cowboys, or I guess you tied in against the Dallas Cowboys, but a tie is kind of a loss. And since then, yes, you've been winning games, but it's been really ugly. This past week against the Cardinals, it was just a very ugly football game where the Packers were down heading into the later half of the game, and they had to sort of make a comeback late. And credit to Micah Parsons for making plays. This Packers team has flaws, and it feels like their offense has gotten a little bit predictable, a little bit stale, and it makes me worried about this Packers team. Again, they are the leader of the division. There's a lot of room to grow and get better. I think there's a pathway for this Packers team to make the playoffs, and once you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. And I think they have enough superstars and talent overall to be, one of the better teams in the NFL, but man, they really got to start to put it together because it has just not been the couple weeks that we've wanted to see from this team. Let's see if they can turn it around. I think they got plenty of talent. They just got to figure it out. Next up, let's go ahead and talk about the Seattle Seahawks. Now, the Seahawks were this, and I mean this close to being put into my favorites category. I just could not quite yet put them there. Now, I am recording this on Monday in the morning, so we have not actually seen them play their Week 7 game. They have a super late game tonight versus the Texans. But even if they win that game, I don't think that pushes them up into my favorites quite yet. The Seahawks are a very, very good football team. And if you tell me the Seattle Seahawks make a run in the playoffs, I would not be shocked. Because I think they have a lot of things going for them. A really good defense with an excellent defensive head coach, a quarterback playing at a very high level, a wide receiver playing like arguably the offensive player of the year, a run game that has some juice to it when things are rolling, and an offensive line that so far has been mostly healthy. So a lot of things are going positive for the Seahawks team. I just want to say this. I don't think they have beat a high caliber opponent yet. They're 4-2 on the season. They're going to have the Texans this week. If they win this game, they'll be 5-2. But so far, their victories are against the Pittsburgh Steelers, which I don't think the Steelers are a great team. I think they're a good team. I don't think they're great. The New Orleans Saints, they dominated the New Orleans Saints 44-13. The Arizona Cardinals, a game that went late into the fourth quarter. And in this past week, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Their two losses on the year are against the 49ers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Yes, you can make the argument that, well, it's a week 1 game. Don't worry about it. I agree. And then this, of course, the Buccaneers game, you can make the argument that we had the ball late with an opportunity to go down and score, but a tip pass interception kind of ruined that chance for you. Regardless, you still lost the game. And I haven't quite seen this team put it together versus a high-level opponent. Now, granted, they're going to have plenty of opportunities down the road. They have a game versus the Commanders in a few weeks on Sunday Night Football. That'll tell you a decent bit. Even this game today against the Texans will tell us a good amount too. They got the Rams later in the season. They got the Colts. They got the Niners again in the last game. So they're going to have more chances to prove why they could be considered a favorite. I like this team. I just need to see them go into a big-time matchup versus a really good opponent and either beat them or potentially blow them out. If they can do that, they'll be pushed up into my favorites. With that said, that's all I got for my dark horses and my contenders. Let's now talk about the favorites. Now, I need to be very specific here when I talk about the favorites. Favorites would be teams that if I had money, I would put money on one of these. I think I have 7 teams here to win the Super Bowl. That doesn't mean that all of them will win the Super Bowl, or that doesn't mean any one of these even will win the Super Bowl. It could be one of my contenders or dark horses. It's just that through 7 weeks, these are the teams that I think right now would be my favorites to win the Super Bowl. And we are going to begin this category with the Buffalo Bills. I know, it's been ugly, and boy, has it been ugly these past few weeks. The run defense has been bad. The defense in general has been really bad, and even the offense that was so potent in the first few weeks has not been good. But I have to put my faith in Josh Allen. I have to put my faith in this front office to make a few moves and get this team heading in the right direction. I think they have pieces, and the biggest reason why they're in my favorites category, they got Josh fucking Allen. Pardon my language. But they got Josh Allen, the dude who won MVP, the dude that has taken this team to multiple playoff runs and has had chances to take that team into potential Super Bowl runs. Josh Allen is that guy. He is just that good. And I have to put my faith in him that he will be able to get this team out of this little sputter. You also look at their schedule, and their schedule is super light the rest of the way. They have a couple tough matchups. I believe they have the Chiefs in a few weeks, but their schedule is very, very light. If they can start to play better on the defensive side of things, they're going to cruise to, probably 12 or 13 wins this year, make it into the playoffs, and maybe even have a first-round bye, assuming they start to play better football. They cannot keep this up these past few weeks where they've just been really bad. So I still have the Bills at my favorites because I think they'll right the ship and I think they'll play fine. They have that dude, Josh Allen, at quarterback that makes me feel even better about this team than a lot of other teams, hence why they're in my favorites, although they have a lot to clean up. Next up, let's talk about the Los Angeles Rams. I have been on the Rams bandwagon for the past couple, months now, although I'm not a Rams fan, I'm a Cowboys fan, but I have been riding the Rams, talking about how they're going to be a great team, and they've been very up and down. It has not been the season that I thought it was going to quite be, but they are 5-2, and they have a couple really good wins on their resume, including beating arguably the best team in the NFL in the Colts. Granted, Adonai Mitchell kind of costed the Colts that game, but still. They also have a game versus Philadelphia where, in my head canon, I kind of call it a victory for the Rams because they were up like 26-7 at one point or something crazy. They should have won that game, but they did not win that game, so that does hurt their stock a little bit. I think the Rams are a very good football team that has everything necessary to go after and potentially win a championship. You have a great quarterback. You have great weapons. You have a solid enough offensive line. Defensively, you can absolutely get after the quarterback. I worry a little bit about the secondary, and this offensive line is not like an incredible offensive line. But I just think they have the experience, the coaching staff, and everything necessary to make that run. Their schedule is quite difficult. They have a couple really challenging tests ahead of them. They got the Seahawks, the Buccaneers, they got the Lions down the road. I think the Falcons are still a competitive team. They got some challenges ahead for them, but I do think this Rams team is good enough to pass these challenges, get to double-digit wins, and all this Rams team needs to do is just stay healthy and get into the playoffs, and I don't think any team would want to face them. I think the Rams are a very, very good football team. Next up, let's talk about the Indianapolis Colts. I think it's important to say here that these are in no particular order. None of the categories are in any order. It's just kind of throwing the names at a wall here. The Indianapolis Colts, to me, are the best team in the NFL through 7 weeks. If you guys have been keeping up my power rankings, they are currently my number 1 seed, and they'll probably stick as my number 1 seed. They have one loss on the season versus the LA Rams. They had Adonai Mitchell just not suited up in that game. They probably win that football game. Shout out A.D. Mitchell. That's my guy. Hook 'em, Texas Longhorns legend, but he made some mistakes in that game. Regardless, the Colts are 6-1 on the season. They have a number of big-time wins. And while I've heard the criticism that the Colts haven't beat nobody, I will counter with this. They have their schedule. They have to play their schedule. And it's not like they're beating up on total scrubs. They beat the Denver Broncos, who are the leader in the AFC West. They probably should have beat the Rams, who are 5-2. Again, we're not going to talk about that one. And in this past week, they beat the LA Chargers, who I know are banged up as hell, but they dominated them from start to finish. It was 38-24 by the end. That number does not do it justice. It was a blowout for most of the game. And outside of that, like, man, they destroyed the Raiders. They beat the Cardinals. Yes, that game was a little dicey, but they still beat them. They destroyed the Titans, and they pummeled the Miami Dolphins. And when you look at their schedule is really not that hard. They have a couple challenges for sure. They got the Steelers in a few weeks, the Chiefs in a few weeks. Any division game are always kind of tough. They got the Seahawks and the Niners too, but it's not that difficult. They have a very winnable schedule. And against some of these bigger challenges like the Chiefs, Steelers, and Seahawks, they're going to have opportunities to prove themselves and prove why they're one of the better teams out there in the NFL. So far through 7 weeks, I think they have passed every test. Their offense is really freaking good, with an A+ running back, an A+ tight end, a great offensive line, and several great weapons on the outside, including my man A.D. Mitchell. I'm sorry about the Rams game. And defensively, they have enough juice to create turnovers, get after the quarterback a little bit, and they are only going to play better football. The defense is not as strong as the offense, but they're good enough. So I like the Colts' chances, especially in the AFC, where right now it's not very strong. Next up, let's talk about the Detroit Lions. Now, the Lions and the Buccaneers, who, spoiler alert, we'll talk about them here in a second, those two teams face off tonight, and both these teams are very banged up. Tampa Bay with their receivers, who I think some are returning, but still banged up. And the Detroit Lions are just flooded with injuries yet again in their secondary. The Lions are 4-2. And it's really hard to judge this team because, again, they are just flooded with injuries on the defensive end, especially in the back end in the secondary, where is arguably one of the most important positions in a passing league. It's hard to judge this team because, man, they are playing good football when they're healthy, but the injuries have derailed them. And frankly, look, injuries are a part of football, and we saw this team get banged up last year. Starting to look like they might get banged up this year, which could potentially hold them back, which would be a shame because they are a very good football team. Great head coach, great coordinators. Yet again, shout out Dan Campbell, always gets the job done there. Jared Goff is playing good football. Jahmyr Gibbs is playing good football. Montgomery's good. Amon-Ra St. Brown, J-Mo, good enough offensive line. Like, they have things completely rolling on the offensive end. And defensively, they got dudes going as well. I think their linebackers are good. Aiden Hutchinson's back and playing his usual form. They just got to get some pieces back in the secondary. And once they get that back, the Lions will be back and rolling. The tough thing about the Lions, their schedule is really, really hard this year. It is not an easy schedule at all. Again, today they got the Buccaneers, then they got the Vikings, the Commanders, then the Eagles. Like, if they go on a losing streak here, there's a real chance they lose their grip of the North. And it doesn't get any easier down the stretch of the season. They got the Cowboys, who aren't an easy team. You got the Packers, you got the LA Rams, the Steelers, the Vikings, and the Bears. This is a tough schedule for the Lions. That does make me a little bit cautious, but if they can start to get healthy and start to put things together, they're going to win enough games to make the playoffs. And if they can just get into the playoffs healthy, I think they'll be fine. Next up, let's talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, I just talked about the Detroit Lions. Again, the Buccaneers play the Lions today. I would put my money on the Buccaneers, but I guess we'll see if I'm right or wrong. The Buccaneers are good. Win or lose tonight, assuming they just keep the game close in a loss, I think the Buccaneers are very good. They have a lot of good wins this year. Of course, the one loss on their resume is the Philadelphia Eagles. And in that game, they kind of got beat up in the first half. They fought their way back in the second half, but first half was quite ugly. Baker Mayfield's playing like an MVP. They got weapons on the outside that are playing at a super high level when they have been healthy. They're going to get back Bucky Irving at some point. They got a good offensive line that hopefully can stay healthy. Defensively, they're flawed. They're not perfect. The secondary is pretty young with guys like Benjamin Morrison and Jacob Parrish and et cetera, et cetera. But there's enough veterans to get the job done. I don't love their linebackers. I also don't love their pass rush, but they can stuff the run at a high level, and they can get after the quarterback a little bit. Really, the offense is going to have to carry this team through a playoff run, and I think they're totally capable of doing it. This Buccaneers team can average 30 points a game. We'll see if their defense can keep teams below 30. I think it's possible. I like this Bucs team a lot. They're looking really, really good. Next up, let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. I know the Chiefs are 4-3, and they have a couple ugly losses on their resume, but look, guys, it's the Kansas City Chiefs, okay? These past few weeks, the team has gotten right. I know the game versus the Jaguars was ugly, but if you take out that Jaguars game, they're 4-1 in their last 5. They have a win versus the Giants. They have a win versus the Ravens, who had Lamar for most of that game. You lose to the Jaguars, a bit of an ugly loss there. Then you beat up on the Detroit Lions, and in this past week, you held the Las Vegas Raiders to less than 100 total yards. Like, what are we talking about? 100 total yards. And they beat them 31-0. The Chiefs are good. They're a good football team. They're a great defense. They got Patrick Mahomes playing at, honestly, like an MVP level. Mahomes is back 100% to his usual MVP antics, and it's great to see because we haven't quite seen that Mahomes these past few years. He's getting healthy in the receiving corps with Rashee Rice fully going now, Kelsey going now, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, Juju. This might arguably be the deepest receiving corps we've seen the Chiefs have in quite some time. I do worry a little bit about this team, and look, their schedule is pretty hard these next few weeks. This week, they have the Commanders. I'm not sure what the Commanders are looking like because they have some injuries. They're not in my contenders video today, but they might be a good team. You got the Bills following them. Then you got the Broncos, the Colts, the Cowboys, the Texans, Chargers, and then down the stretch, you got the Broncos again. So some pretty tough challenges for the Chiefs. And look, they don't have a ton of wiggle room. Realistically speaking, they can maybe afford 3, maybe 4 losses in the AFC. If they handle their business, though, they should be fine. And again, no team wants to face the Chiefs if they make the playoffs. None of them. It's a tough, rowdy environment if they're in Arrowhead. And the Chiefs know how to win football games in the playoffs. So nobody wants to face them. They're a great football team. Never, ever, ever count out Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and this Chiefs team when they're fully healthy. And lastly, our last favorite is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles have not been playing great football, but I think they're starting to figure things out on the offensive end. They still can't run the football, which is a major concern for me, but you know they have the guy in Saquon Barkley. You know they have some of the guys on the offensive line in Lane Johnson, Mailata. You know, you're going to get Dickerson back, hopefully. Like they have the guys on the offensive line to get this run game going. It's just figuring out the scheme and how they want to implement that into their system. The Philadelphia Eagles basically have everything you need. They got a feisty defense with some young guys that are playing well. That defense is not as good as they were a year ago, nor are they as deep as what they were last year. But they still have probably a top 10 defense. And on the offensive end, when Jalen Hurts is playing well, and as we all know, Hurts is a bit of a playoff riser, they're going to be good on the offensive end. We just saw A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith have their best games of the season. It looks like that passing game is starting to open up. Some of those downfield shots that Hurts was missing early in the season, he's starting to hit those now. And again, if they can open up some more run lanes for Saquon Barkley, this Eagles team is going to be right back to where they were last year. Now, unlike last year, I do think the NFC is a bit more competitive because the Eagles have taken a small step back, and we've seen teams like the Buccaneers, the Seahawks, some of these other teams like the Rams take steps forward. So I don't know yet if I would put my money on Philadelphia to win the NFC, but I think they have a really good chance. They're a really good team that gets held back a little bit by coaching. Let's see if the coaching staff can turn things around. They're going to have a couple tough tests here in a few weeks, but if they can continue to figure things out, I like the Eagles' chances of making the playoffs and making a potential deep run. So again, to recap today's video, our dark horses are the Niners, Patriots, and Broncos. Our contenders are the Seahawks, Packers, and Chargers. and our favorites are the Eagles, Chiefs, Bucks, Lions, Colts, Rams, and Bills. You guys let me know in the comment section below, did I miss a team in any of these categories, or do you disagree with my rankings? Let me know down below. And if you enjoyed, hit that like and subscribe button. I love you guys. Peace.